Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the This Is Me podcast. I'm Karen.
And I'm Ellie, and today we have Sam joining us. Sam is a serving Royal Navy captain and soon to be veteran turned life coach as a co-founder of Acsis Life Coaching. So Sam, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us today. To get us started, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much for having me. It's great to be here. So I was born in South Africa, and I grew up in South Africa during the 80s. And I suppose from an early life and experience perspective, I grew up during the apartheid era. So I saw what that meant. I experienced, racism and saw it, homophobia, sexism, things like that. So I suppose early on in my life, I guess I learned to adapt. I learned to listen deeply to stories, and I sort of found that I was in a space where I was learning a lot about myself, but I was also growing up in a very specific environment, I would say. We then emigrated to the US when I was in my sort of formative teenage years, and quite a culture shock, if I'm perfectly honest with you. Going from a massively conservative environment to, let's call it, a bit more casual California.
You
Where
went
the
to
world looked
California
very,
as well.
yeah. So the world looked very different,
Yeah.
sort of during the 80s. And I guess when I was there, I was just still trying to decide who I was, what I wanted to be. Then moved back to South Africa to finish my schooling. And I suppose when I finished school, I was stuck at this point where I was really connected to nature. So I really just wanted to go and work on a game farm and be a game ranger, if I'm honest with you. But at the same time, I applied to go to university, and I was due to start a languages degree because I was really interested in traveling and languages and people and cultures. But unfortunately, my parents had split up at that time. And then I was part of a single parent home, one of 4 children, and the money was tight. So I thought, I don't really want to start my life in debt. So I thought I can't, my mum couldn't afford to send me to university. So I thought, I know, I'll do a little bit of traveling, go and find myself, and then see what sort of takes me. So I love traveling. So I decided to, with my £200 in my back pocket, I arrived in the UK and
Is that
did
how
what
much?
most.
£200?
Yeah,
Wow.
Wow.
didn't last long when I arrived in London. But essentially, I thought, I'm just going to have a look around and see what I can do. So I did what a lot of Antipodeans do when they get here, moved to somewhere like Earl's Court, Wandsworth, sort of mini London, Australia, mini Australia, South Africa, New Zealand, in southwest London. And really just started doing a variety of odd jobs. During that time, my brother had moved here and worked here, and he went on a holiday to Egypt. So he said, "Hey, Sam, let's go on holiday together. Why don't you come and join me?" So I went on a 1-week holiday to Egypt with him and ended up spending 4 years there. I trained as a scuba diving instructor. It was a very long, lovely holiday, by the way.
Sounds amazing.
I trained as a scuba diving instructor. And really, sort of, I learned how, cultures and worlds collide. I learned how they work together. But I suppose I was quite young. I was sort of 19 at the time. And I suppose I learned really early on what responsibility really meant and what trust means. I suppose for me personally, I was 19 years old. People were going, "Hey, here's my life. Teach me to scuba dive. Take me underwater. If you get it wrong, I could die, drown." That was a really big responsibility at that sort of age. So I think I learned, how to get trust, grow that resilience from my childhood, growing up in South Africa and the US, and then really just start thinking about getting people to trust you, but also taking responsibility for what you do quite early. And I think that's a really important theme in my life. And I suppose that's almost what drew me to the military. I thought, I've been a professional beach bum for a few years now, so I need to get a proper job, but I still want to get a tertiary education. How can I get someone to pay for me? And actually, when I was living in Egypt, the defense attaché in Cairo at the time brought his family down, and I happened to train him and his family to scuba dive. And he sort of said to me, he said, "You would be great in the military. There's just something about you." So I said, "Oh,
Wow.
I know. Why don't I take him up on that?" And one of my colleagues, diving colleagues, sort of said to me, they were ex-army, and they said, "You should go and join the army. You would be great." I thought, I wonder why people are saying this. And they're like, "Well, you just look like you know that that's the place for you. And I thought, well, if they're going to pay for my education, why not?
Yeah.
So I thought, what have I got to lose? I've got nothing to lose. I've got a few £100 in my back pocket. I teach scuba diving for a living. I don't have any A levels or GCSEs or anything like that. What can I do? So I wrote to this senior brigadier in London, and I said, "Hey, brigadier, my name's Sam. I live in Egypt, and I want to join the army." So you can
Good for
imagine this
you.
guy was like, "Yeah, sure. Well, let's think about that." Anyway, I got a phone call with the guy, and I said, "Hey, look, this is me. This is my background." And he said, "Yeah, okay. Well, you need to come to the UK." So I flew to the UK, went and met him in London.
This senior brigadier.
A senior brigadier, yep.
I think you've got some gall.
Well, I thought, what have I got to lose, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought, you know what, life's just about taking those chances and those risks. And I think that's another thing for me is that, don't be afraid to go for it, because what's the worst thing is that's going to happen. They're going to say no. And I guess the only thing, I regret in hindsight now are the things that I never did or I never tried. But I do like to say that I do try pretty much everything that I'm curious about or interested in.
Yeah.
So I think I learned that from my mum. So I think when I went to go and see this brigadier, he said, "Hey, look, we'd love to have you, but you don't really have the right qualifications. You're a little bit rough around the edges. So you need to join as a soldier first, get a bit of experience and time under your belt, and then we'll consider allowing you to sort of, try and go for your commission as an officer." So I did that. I did a couple of courses, did the regular commission board, and then I commissioned into the Royal Logistics Corps. And started life as an army officer. And I'd found my tribe, I'd found my place. I learned what
Did you
serve to
feel
lead
that?
means. I did feel that.
Yeah,
I
that's
really
really
did feel
interesting, isn't
that.
it?
And I think the whole sort of mantra around serve to lead, servant leadership is how I like to roll, if you like. That's how I want people to see me, that I'm there to help them, and I'm there to help sort of advance their careers, their futures, and their goals. And I guess that's why life coaching sang to me sort of now in these later years. But I guess going back to the army, I then transferred to the Navy.
I was going to say, where did that happen? Because I'm sure you're on
Yeah, so a
ships.
lot of people always ask me this question.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting. I really enjoyed my time in the army, and I really enjoyed some of my deployments and some of my experiences, particularly at 17th Port Maritime Regiment. I had a super team there. But I just thought that the army was this really big machine. It's a bit formal for my liking. I'm a bit more relaxed. I'm a shorts and t-shirts kind of gal. And the army is a little bit formal. So I met a few Navy and Air Force folks, but there was something about the Navy folks and being on a ship, because I'd spent some time at sea with the Royal Fleet Auxiliary and working with the Royal Marines, where I thought, I think they're a little bit more my tribe. I like this
A bit
army
more
tribe,
you. Yeah.
but that's a little bit more me. And I also like the fact that they work in quite small environments. Sort of, on a ship, there'll be, well, the Type 42s that I first sort of worked in, we had 200, 250 people on board, but sometimes you're only 100, 180 people, and you're away for 9 months, and that's your clan for those 9 months. So I transferred to the Navy, and that's where my career has been. So, I'm coming up to 28, 29 years in service at the moment. And like I said, I've just started my career transition pathway and plan to become a civilian and to retire or become a veteran, whichever way you want to look at it. I see it as a transition. I see it one of life's transitions. And I don't want to cut off my ties with the military. So I'm hoping that I can still maintain some kind of contact with them in some shape or form, is really what I'm hoping to do in the future, whether that's in some sort of part-time advisory supporting role. I really like to do that, but I'm also very excited about starting my own business. And I suppose I've just hit a milestone birthday this year.
Have you?
I maybe didn't have such an easy paper round like you, Karen, but
I've told you, it's my skincare.
But I guess part of my journey over the last few years, I really love what I'm doing. I love my team and where I am, but I've also still think that there's something missing, and I've still got something to give. And I
Yeah.
suppose part of my journey over the last sort of year, 18 months has been, what is this thing? And I suppose starting Acsis Life Coaching is possibly this thing I'm missing. I don't know, but I'm going to try it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think I really just want to give it a go. And I guess what I'm hoping to achieve with Acsis from a life coaching perspective is, number one, is be there for my community. And my community is pretty broad. I love sports. I love nature. I'm connected with the veteran community, particularly the LGBT community, because this year is a really important year. The 25th anniversary of lifting the ban on the LGBT folks serving in the military, and I joined before the ban, and I now have a wife, and I could have potentially been thrown out like a lot of those veterans that I'm meeting. So it's very, very important to me that I connect with that community and support those veterans. And I'm super proud to sort of stand alongside some of them on their journeys, as they look at what their futures might look like, because it's still a very raw subject for a lot of individuals, as I'm sure you can understand. So I'm very proud to be there to support them. And I suppose from an organizational perspective and building a business perspective, I'm really keen to try and help our military and veteran community. So people who are serving, those in this transition phase, like I am, I have experience of it and I understand it. And then also our veteran community. A lot of people, get to the end of their military service and then they hit a brick wall and they don't really know what to do. Like the sporting community, my wife's an ex-professional sportswoman, and I suppose a lot of sporting careers end relatively early. And then what do? You lose your coach, you lose your nutritionist, you lose your schedule, you lose your routine, you lose all of those things. The same with the military, you lose your tribe, you lose your identity, your rank, your uniform, whatever it is that you sort of connect with. So I think trying to help people on that front is really important to me. But I'd like to sort of expand the business to look at other areas. But our niche initially is going to focus on the military and veteran community. Is the key thing.
Start with what you understand. I think there's so much to ask you. The first thing that I want to ask you is, so you went to the Navy and you went into the smaller teams. What did you learn about building a team in that environment that you think, because I think that's going to be really interesting for the work you do now. How did you learn to build? I'm not going to say it's high performance, because you can't always have high performing teams, but what did you really learn, like when you were the boss?
Well, so, obviously trust is a really important thing. And I think, credibility and willing to get your hands dirty. I suppose one of the things that I've always been fortunate to say to my teams when I've joined sort of new units and traveling through my career, one of the fortunate things for me is I joined as a soldier. So when people know that I have that sort of junior level experience, you kind of get almost a little bit of free cred, if you like, with the team, because they go, you've actually done some of this before. But it's about how you treat people, I think, and how people feel. They want to trust you. They want to know that you're going to be able to handle it during a situation. I'll give you an example. I was on board a ship, and we had, I was the damage control officer on board the ship, and we had this incident, a fire, and essentially I run to the middle of the ship and I control all of the activity. So I sort of, cohere and coordinate all of the activity and make sure that everybody around the ship knows what's going on. So of course, I'm the one who makes the announcements over the sort of loudspeakers across the ship. Now I have to sound very cool and confident and what I know what I'm doing. But equally, all the shouting around me of when all the information is coming in, I've got to sit back and listen, and I've got to give everybody a chance. So I've got to manage those sorts of things. And I suppose during one of those particular incidents, we had, a lot of things going on. And I remember sort of sitting there and I had this moment where I thought, how are these people actually going to, react to what I'm about to say and all of these kinds of things. But I think by me being very calm, sitting there listening to everybody, I had a little sort of script that I could follow just to help me out a little bit. But I sort of made my first announcement in a very confident way and, sort of said, please send all your reports in, and went through all the various details. We're trained to do this. And then I looked around the room and I went, okay, let's keep the noise levels down and everybody has a say. And I want to hear from everybody. Let's start over here. And then I started with the key folks who were in the room, and I gave everybody a chance to sort of contribute to that particular situation. And I suppose, when we sort of went through that and finished up, and we did a little bit of after action reflection, if you like. I'm very big into that. I'm very into Scrum and Agile and those sorts of things, and having a look at that. The whole sort of leadership in that room at that time, it wasn't because of my rank. It wasn't because, of the uniform I was wearing or any of those kind of things. I think it was about allowing those people to show up and be themselves and contribute. So I think from building a team perspective, I got some experience there. If I fast forward to where I am today, I work in central London. I work at a very sort of senior level organization wise, and I sort of manage really big teams, and I've been building very complex teams that have to work across not only various programs, projects, and portfolios, but across organizations, so across the single services and sort of our arm's length bodies and enabling organizations. So building those teams are really complicated and complex, and I've loved doing that because that's what I'm good at. I'm good at finding those sort of networks, and I'm good at pulling those teams together. But again, for me, it's about pulling people together, getting them in a room face to face and going, you know what, we're going to have to work together. How do we do this? How do you roll? What gets you up in the morning? What fires you? Look, everyone's different. Some people are morning people, some people are evening people, some people don't like the chit chat, some people love a bit of chit chat, some want the water cooler moment, some just want to be online, get their work done and done. So everybody's different. And I think just saying to people, you've got the space to be yourself. We've got to have a coherent vision. We've got to agree how we're going to work. We've got to be transparent, and we've got to trust each other. As long as we've got those things, there is space for you to be who you want to be. So I think from that perspective, building teams is something that I absolutely love doing, because sometimes it can be difficult. But I'm not shy of tackling a difficult things, and I'm also very curious. I think curiosity is pretty critical as well.
That's why I asked, actually, because I thought that's the environment you've been in. Well, you haven't got the luxury of not being able to build a team in the environment you're in. The people we work with, I'm not saying they've got the luxury of that, but they're not time driven or task driven, whereas you've got to really build that. We do a lot of work with trust, and you've got to really accelerate that trust, haven't you? So thank you for that. I just was interested how you'd done that. It's fascinating.
I'm interested to know sort of, what was it about the Navy and Navy lifestyle that has kept you in serving for as long as you have done? Because, and this could be totally made up, but my imagery of military life is people that either the only people I've seen are the people that go in for a couple of years and go, no, this is not for me, or career military. So what was it for you that made you go, no, I'm gonna stick around?
Well, that's a great question. So I think, first of all, we're actually in the process, and on the team where I'm working, we're in the process of looking at how can we make it easier for people to come in and out of the military a little bit more smoothly and easily. So that is work that is ongoing, and I'm delighted that that's happening, because you're right, it's not actually for everybody. But then it may be that it's just certain types of service are not for everybody, and they've just, because we're trying to do something that's one size fits all, one size ends up fitting none. So we're working really hard to change what those terms and conditions of service look like. So I think that's going to be really positive for the future. And I suppose for young people listening, the defence offers a wide array of opportunities. And if you're someone like me who goes, I need someone to pay this, or I just want to try something different, or I have no idea what I want to do, because I would say that I think I still don't know what I want to do. That's one of my reasons for staying, Ellie, because I've had so many amazing opportunities, and I've done so many different things. I may have joined as a logistics officer, or I may have joined as an Army Air Corps soldier, but let me tell you, in 30 years, I've done so many different things. I've done jobs where I've been an international relations officer. So I work with all of our embassies in London and travel around the world and work with navies and military organizations around the world. I've done jobs where I've been the boss on a ship of a logistics department, on operations. I've seen service in Kosovo, Afghanistan, Iraq, places like that. I've done tours where I've been away for 9 months from my family and sailed around the world and just met so many amazing people, experienced a number of cultures and seen so many different things. So I suppose from that perspective, you know, I've served in so many different environments and I've seen so many different things. I think that's actually what's kept me interested, and that's what's made me stay. And also you get these little things where I think, as we would say in the military, in Civvy Street, who gets to run around every morning on the top of an aircraft carrier, or go in a helicopter and get dropped off in the middle of the ocean and then get picked up again. You don't often get to do things like this.
Yeah, never.
And
really.
I suppose
I think you never get to do things like that. Yeah, exactly.
Well, exactly. But I think so I guess in my younger, more sort of excitable, enthusiastic days, that adventure, that excitement, that opportunity was all really important. It still is. And I suppose the thing that's kept me in was some of those adventurous things, those changes in jobs, but also the opportunity to learn and develop and grow, because I think that's really important for people. It's really important for me because I didn't go to university. It took me 20 years in the military to finally get my master's degree.
I was going to ask, did you eventually get your education? Because that was, remember, that was.
Oh yeah, I've forgotten all about
one of your
that.
things, wasn't it? Yeah, I'm going to go there because they're going to give me it.
Yeah, so it took me 20 years to get there, but I got there, and I've done a number of courses in between. I've also had an opportunity to do a lot of sport, and within that, I got to do my triathlon coaching, and I'm a triathlete, and I got to do my coaching course, and I use those skills on a daily basis. Just learning how to help people in general. So I think those are the things that have kept me in, and also just working with some incredibly talented people. And the people that I meet, and some of the people that I'm coaching at the moment, everybody's got a really cool story to tell. Just got to figure out how to help them tell it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really big thing for me, is helping everybody find their story. I've got lots of nieces and nephews, and I talk to a lot of young people. A lot of people don't really know what they want from life. And I guess trying to help guide them and steer them towards finding their own purpose is really important. And then I suppose the other thing is my connection with nature. I think in the military you get an opportunity. I know this sounds really sort of contrary, but you do get an opportunity to connect with nature, whether that's deploying, as someone who's been serving in the Navy, being at sea, and all of those kind of things. I've really had the opportunity to have some thinking time, but to experience different aspects of nature. Dare I say it, during humanitarian operations and helping people in times of the worst situations. But really just having that moment to go, what, nature's really important to me. And that's something that I'm trying to bring in and build into my business with Acsis Life Coaching. It's an opportunity for me to say to people, and I guess you were saying this earlier, Karen, getting people just to stop for a moment, breathe, ground themselves. I hate I'm not wearing shoes, by the way, so I hate wearing shoes.
No,
and I love walking around barefoot, and one of the things I love doing is going outside on a lunch break or something, and just feeling the grass beneath my feet, and just really connecting with Mother Nature. I think that's really important to me. And it's helping people find that balance, because I think we're, I do love technology and AI, and I'm all into that, and part of my business is going to be using that. But I think sometimes we become a little bit slave to those sorts of things. So I do think that encouraging people just to take a little bit of a tech break, and go and see what nature's got to offer is really, really important.
I can thoroughly recommend listening to Jennifer Lane's podcast on this. Bear with us, because she was really interested in nature, worked on a nature reserve, but she has found witchery, paganism, and it's grounded in nature. And she has some amazing suggestions about how you can go and connect your energy.
Fantastic.
She's trying to really
she's fascinating.
Encourage, really try and work about how you can bring that into tech-driven, AI-driven, phone-driven people. So I'm going to ask you just a really, really nothing to do with your work. What's the most amazing place in nature you've seen that you think, wow?
The most amazing place in nature.
It's going to make me so
that
jealous.
is I mean, I'm very fortunate. Do you know what one of the most amazing experiences I've had in nature? I was actually in the Navy. I was on a deployment to the South Atlantic, and we went to somewhere called South Georgia. So probably one of the most southern inhabited sort of areas that you could visit. And we went to go and see Shackleton's grave. And I remember getting off the ship, sort of walking down to go and see Shackleton's grave, and there were these massive elephant seals, all just lying, just sort of randomly, and emperor penguins. And I mean, they're massive.
They're massive,
and I
aren't
think
they?
just walking through these animals was not only probably one of the most amazing experiences. A little bit frightening with the elephant seals, especially when they get up and they're 3 times bigger than you. You realize how big they actually are. But really just the quiet and the stillness, but just seeing how these animals can survive in a pretty harsh environment. I suppose the bit that was fun for me, and the reason why I remember this, is because a few of us from the ship's company, let's say about 30 or 40 of us, we went ashore and we got the opportunity to see this. And then everyone was being transported back by small boat to the ship, because we were supposed to sort of lift the anchor and sort of head off into the sunset type scenario. But the weather came in, so 4 of us were stuck on South Georgia with the scientists. There are 11 scientists that work for the British Antarctic Survey that live there. It sounds like a fascinating job, but we got stuck there overnight. So what an opportunity, first of all, to get stuck in one of the most remote places on Earth, but to chat to these scientists about their life. They did feed us a couple of drinks, I'm not going to lie, so we did have a few in the bar.
Yeah.
And then the next morning, we had bacon sandwiches in their kitchen, their galley, watching elephant seals having their pups right in front of us. And I sat there with my bacon sandwich in the morning going, who gets to do this? Who actually gets to do this and see this most incredible thing happening right in front of you?
Because I bet the amount of people that can say they've been sat having their breakfast, eating a bacon sandwich, watching elephant seals give birth is probably maybe a handful or two. Do you know what I mean? I don't think that many people can say that they've done that at all.
That's awesome.
But it's interesting you say that, though, Ellie, because I think everybody does get that opportunity. Okay, it might not be an elephant seal, but if you go and stand outside right now and go and find a little piece of nature, if you take the time to look at some really small things, I think you still have the opportunity to witness some really amazing things. And I suppose the question I would say is, if you stepped outside today and really took some time to look at nature, what amazing thing can you see? It might be something really small. I see it every day when I go out with my dogs in the morning, and I see the same things. We walk in the same places, but I notice different things. I mean, I took a photo the other day of a baby little frog in my hand, which was hopping along the pathway, and I sent it to my wife, and I said, "Hey, look, this is who joined us today. This tiny little frog." But I took some time to try and notice what was around me, and I think we can do that. I know the elephant seal story is a little bit different, but I think there's some pretty incredible stuff right on our back garden. We've just got to take some time to have a look at it, I would say.
I think people are too busy taking photographs of what it is they should be looking at, aren't they? Do you know, like
very like profound.
Living in
well
the
done.
phone. I know, it always amazes me when you're out and you see people like I like to travel. I like to get. I've been to some amazing places. I love it, and the amount of people that are taking photographs rather than being present is stunningly interesting at the minute, isn't it? But that's a whole different ball game for a whole different rant. So,
Fair enough.
So tell us a bit about. Can you just explain for people that are listening, what do you mean when you say transition? Because I think it's a terminology that not many people who are necessarily listening will understand. And then
can I piggyback off the... Oh, no, I just wanted to piggyback off the back of that question, which I know is not a great way to ask a question, but is that common whilst leaving the military? Because I think you have an idea... Maybe I should have just let you answer the question first, but I think you have an idea of like people leaving the military and maybe sort of being a little bit abandoned, but is that true, or is that like just a bit of a myth that, like is a common misconception? Sorry, Karen, I did totally hijack your question there. But
do you know what else? It doesn't really matter. I've heard about the elephant seals. So
yeah.
yeah, I think the transition bit is interesting because I think for me, like, I think transition is a really interesting word in my world about, like, I'll let you talk about it rather than me, but it'd be really interesting to see how it's used in the military and whether it has different connotations is what I was really interested in. And then I do think you're right, Elle. How is that managed and worked is what I think you were asking, even that you hijacked my question. So
sorry, I am sorry. I apologise.
So I think it's a great question, because I think everybody will interpret and have their own view on what transition means to them, which I think is absolutely fine. I suppose the way I kind of look at transitions in general, or transition in general, is life is a series of transitions. And I think William Bridges wrote a really good book on this, called Transitions. And it really talks a little bit around, transitioning from being dependent on your family. As you become a teenager, you start to become less dependent, and that's kind of like a phase of life, if you like. Then you might have let's call it a decade, or a series where you're trying to find yourself, where you fit in the world, all of that kind of thing. For some people like me, might take 20, 30, 40 years, who knows? You might never find that thing, right?
you might never find it, yeah.
But there is some kind of transition of some description, and then you may decide to partner up with someone, start a family, whatever that looks like for you. So that might be described as a life transition. And then there are a couple of other things, moving between key jobs. For example, going back to your point around being in the military, I'm now going to transition to becoming a veteran, and what does that mean and look like for me? But that can mean just simply changing a job or doing other things. So I think the definition of transition for me, I like to keep pretty fluid, I would say. So it could be connected to phases of life. It could be connected to your role. It could be connected to your personal life. It could be connected to your spiritual life. There's all sorts of areas that you could connect it to. But I suppose when you're navigating a transition, you may find that it's a really exciting, enthusiastic, positive experience, or you may find that actually you're struggling with that experience, and it's about how you manage it, I would say. That's really interesting for me. And obviously with Acsis Life Coaching, part of that is helping people manage those transitions. And then I guess going back to your part of the question, Ellie, what does that mean from a military perspective? We have a fantastic career transition partnership, which Reed provides for us. But the military provides a really good program for personnel to help you understand what does that next phase look like. We've got some, through the Armed Forces Covenant and through some of our great charities like the Forces Employment Charity, for example. They really give us so many different opportunities, not only for serving personnel, but also for our families and for veterans, actually. So it's a really good system, where it does actually just help you navigate and understand what that transition outside of the military looks like. Because we were talking earlier about the professional sports industry, and people, professional sports people like the military. Everything is really focused, and you know exactly what you've got. You've got your nutritionist, you've got your routines, just like we've got our routines, our uniform, our discipline, and all of these things. And the minute you leave that, or you stop your sport, there's all of that is gone. And if you're someone who's sort of hung on to the rank or the uniform as part of your identity, you find that really difficult, or your sport is your identity. You then find navigating life probably quite difficult.
We did some work. We did some work with we do some sporting work, but one particular, we did some work with a football club, and it was interesting because some of the youngsters were just coming into semi-professional, but some of the professionals were coming down. Do you so you had this meeting of transitions that you had joyousness and oh my God, this is it, the slippery slope out. And what I realised when we started working, because we do a lot of work with mental toughness, what I realised with the sporting people is sometimes that transition is really harsh. It's not like, because I was going to ask, I presume that once you know that you're going to move out, your transition is, structured and managed. Where some of the footballers and other ones, it's like, isn't it?
very
It's a harsh
cutthroat. Yeah.
So that's interesting you say that. I wouldn't say that it's very structured and managed. I would say that it's probably down to. I'd say that there are opportunities available to you.
Right.
But I do
Get
think
you.
it's up to you as an individual to take advantage,
Right.
but also try and think about, what does the future look like for you? And if you don't know what your purpose is, if you still haven't found what you're looking for, to coin a phrase, I
Yeah.
suppose, that transition can be quite tricky because, of course,
Yep.
which courses do you go on? Where do you start looking for jobs?
Where do
How
you
do you get
focus your
advice on a
energy? Yeah.
CV? How do you focus your energy? So I would say that it is still a difficult process, and
Okay.
I'm seeing this now. I'm joining courses where I've got young soldiers who've been serving for a few years to people who've been in for 30 years, and I'm asking them, I'm like, well, what's your experience? Tell me about it. And some of them know exactly what they want to do, and some of them have no idea.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. So we have a great system available, and we have a great process
Yeah, it's
available
really
to
good
them.
insight.
But I do think that there is still something missing, and I suppose that's where I'd like Acsis Life Coaching
Yeah, I was going to
to
ask
offer
you.
some support.
Yeah, that's what I
Because
was
of
going to
course we
ask.
want to
Yeah.
give back to our community. So, as an Armed Forces Covenant and Pride in Veteran Standard signatory, that is really what is important to us as a business, to make sure that we can offer some of that support if they're not already getting it through the plethora of support that is available. So, trying to find where those gaps are and plug those gaps and just be available to help people because we've experienced it.
Yeah.
And part of our journey as a business is also to employ veterans. My co-founder Lloyd is an ex-Navy guy. He's an ex-PTI actually, so sport and physical, mental health, well-being is a real core part of what we do. And our other team members also ex-military. So I think at the moment as a small business, as we grow, we're a group of veterans. We understand. We've all had experience. We've all served in the ranks and had some experience as officers, so we can connect with a very sort of wide range of people. So I think that that's going to be a really important part, certainly of my transition, because I don't know what it's going to look like. And in fact, my wife and I were talking about this just in the last few weeks, and she said, "Are you ready for the grief?" And I went, "What do you mean?" And she said, "You're going to grieve." And I went, "I know I am. I just haven't got my head around it yet. I've got about 12 months to sort my head out, but I haven't quite got there yet. And it's a journey right now, so I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm trying my best to think, how can I best prepare myself,
Yeah.
but then be agile enough to deal with it when it comes, because I don't know what it's going to feel like specifically. I think I've got it all squared away, but the reality is like on operations, you train, you pack the right battle box, you've got yourself prepared, you're all ready to ship out, you get to your environment, and you land there and you go, right, this is what we've got to do. And you look around and you go, this is absolutely not what we were expecting. Put all those
Yeah.
little great plans away. Let's just deal with what we've
Start
got in the
again. Yeah.
situation, and then just deal with the situation. You've picked up some skills along the way. You've picked up some good routines. You've picked up good habits. I think habits is a really important thing for me. So getting yourself to maintain your well-being, your mental health, as well as your physical health is really important, because once you've got those habits, when the tough times do come in, those are the things that I tend to rely on just to keep me going. So I think that's an important thing for me as well.
I think that's actually really, really fascinating, because we have a lot of conversations, like particularly on this podcast as well, about women who have made these huge career changes, for whatever different reasons to one another, but usually as a result of getting to a place where they're like, and I just couldn't do what I was doing anymore. And there's an element of trauma based in that, whatever that trauma looks like for different people, but it's usually people have got to a point where they literally can't take it anymore. And I think you might be, well, maybe not, but I think you might be one of the first people that we've spoken to where actually this is your plan.
And
You
choice.
like, it's what you do, it's your choice.
Yeah.
It's not coming from this, no, I'm gonna work for myself, I can't work in this environment. And I think it's really fascinating. Maybe it is that preparedness that you've had to learn how to do over the years in your job. I just think it's really It's really nice to hear, actually, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think, yeah. It struck me, I think, Ellie, you're right. Sorry, this is just about me and Ellie at the minute. One of the things that you've made me really think about, is how you can make people prepared for a transition that they don't even know is going to come about. Does that make absolute sense? So it's like reframing the whole thing, which is about one day. Like, you've had to train operationally, you've had to train for scenarios. You don't get that in corporate worlds. You don't train for scenarios. And I think it's a really fascinating insight that we should talk to you about after this podcast, about preparedness. But for that moment when I started my own business because of ill health. I didn't, loads of people have started their own business because of redundancy. I do like your thoughts about, you don't know what it's quite going to look like, that landscape, as you launch yourself out, but you've got something really in your rucksack. Yeah,
but
really
isn't it interesting though, Karen, as you say that? I think we naturally do prepare ourselves. We don't think we're actually doing it, but if you think about on a daily basis, we know we've got to eat healthy, so maybe we eat healthily to maintain a general health. Maybe we know we need to go and get some exercise, so we try a bit of movement. And that's actually preparedness. That's preparing yourself.
It's a great conversation.
So I do think that it's in us all. You've just got to channel that energy, and then look at it and then go, okay, well, what does that mean from a wider life perspective? I have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. I hope my health stays. I have some health issues and bits and bobs like that. I think as you get older, you have to understand that these sort of things are coming. But I guess I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't want to focus all my time in, I'm not a big believer in this whole sort of, massive, I have to eat this and this and be strict with myself. I want to enjoy life. I want to live for today.
Yeah.
But I know that there's some things that I can do so that when things do get tough, if I'm having a busy week at work, some things will keep me grounded. My walk with my doggies, my coffee with my wife, where we talk in the morning and we talk about our day and we go, right, what are you doing today? What am I doing today? What's the one thing you're going to do for you? What's the one thing you're going to do for me? It's about living, because that's what it's all about. You don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. So there is an element of preparedness and training.
Cancer diagnosis, I went like a bit of a Looney Tune, because it was really, it came out of the blue. I'd never ill or anything, and I went a little bit, oh right, I can't eat this, I mustn't eat this, I must sleep this, I must. Do you remember I had a list? It was like,
and I understand, I totally get it, but it was mental.
It taught me such a lesson that became a prison. Do you know, like every, they call it your should have list, and I was thinking, well, you've never done 30 minutes exercise every day in your life. And what it taught me was that balance, which is life needs to be for the living, but somebody who, I've talked to this on a few podcasts, but it really hit home to me. It's a hypnotherapist I saw. And she said to me, if you just do your best, Karen, she said, if you get to that situation and something changes and you've done your best, that's about preparedness. And she won't even let you say very best, because and it's a really good mantra, which I think is what you're talking about, which is do your best. And when you face that situation, if you've done your best, then you've done that's all you can do, really. Really interesting. I really like that concept of what I think I've heard you a couple of times now, like on the elephant seals and on that, sort of say, we've got it in us. We've got it in us. I love it. I really love that perspective.
I think everybody's got it in them. You just got to find it.
I love it. Yeah. I was going to ask you something before we sort of come to the end of this. But what's your hope for? So tell us a little bit about your business, and what's your hope, not just for your business, but for you in this new phase of your life. You're not going back scuba diving in Egypt, are you?
No, so I started Acsis Life Coaching with a view and a vision to help people, and I had this view and this vision that I was going to build this amazing AI app, so a digital twin, and we've experimented and we're trialing lots of things. But I suppose in the grand scheme of things, it's just about helping people find that thing within themselves, to reach their goals, to find their purpose. To live the life that they want to live. And of course, everybody's different, everybody's goals and expectations. Some people want lots of money, some people want happiness, some people want this. Everybody has different things. And I think that changes through life. particularly as you get a little bit older, I would say. So I suppose having had a think about that, I thought I'll start Acsis Life Coaching with a view to helping the military, because that's the business that I know and I understand it like the back of my hand. And my team and I, we are all in that space, and we understand what that transition means. We understand what life in the military means, and we understand certainly what life afterwards looks like and means. And I guess part of that is that connection with nature. So that's partly what I'm trying to do now is I've always been a nature lover, and like I said, I always just wanted to go and work on that game farm, and I absolutely love nature. So it's about helping me reconnect with nature and find who I am, find my own natural rhythm, my seasons, my cycle, and all of those sorts of things. But then it's also about, how do I pay this forward? How do I help my community? So, wherever possible, we'll be working with the military community, our veterans, to sort of help them. And we do that in a variety of ways already. We've just actually done a charity event where we walked from New Haven to Brighton, 20 odd kilometres. My sister joined us. I've got a pretty close family. My sister joined us for the walk with the team. And we picked up rubbish all the way. We picked up litter. So we did the event to support Surfers Against Sewage and the Fighting with Pride charity. Because those are two things that are really important, our environment and then obviously our veteran community. So I suppose, for me, that's where I hope Acsis will go. How can we give back to our community? How can we develop this business to employ other veterans, perhaps during their transitions in life, when they're trying to decide what they want to do, but then provide some of those services and that support that these people need. And then how can we expand that to other areas? Because, of course, there are so many parallels with other areas of business, whether that's the charity sector, the private sector. Both my brothers are in banking, for example. They all see a lot of the same problems. We all talk about the same things. The context might be slightly different, but sometimes when someone wakes up and has a bad day, it doesn't matter what your job is, you're still having a bad day, and how do you manage that? And I think everybody has it inside them to manage it. You've just got to find it and find your way. And I think habits are a really important part of that, as I said earlier. But really just finding how you can connect with nature and just take a step back sometimes. I'm a very enthusiastic person, and I go charging into things like a bull sometimes. And I suppose what I've been trying to teach myself, when you said, what are you trying to get out of this? Trying to teach myself just to calm down a little bit.
It's really
I am usually quite calm in a tough situation, but I get very enthusiastic, and
so do I.
and I get excited. So it's really just trying to channel that energy a little bit, I think, is what I'm hoping to be able to do.
I think my advice to you would be, if you are enthusiastic, just make sure the shiny things are kept away from you.
I've got a guy called Matt on my team, and he is so good at keeping the shiny things away. Every now and again, I'll get a little message, "Hey Sam, calm it down." I'm very lucky. I've got a tribe around me, my family, my friends, and my team. They all know who I am, and they know when to say, keep the shiny stuff away from her, make her focus, or allow her to focus.
What you have to do then, Sam, is you have to do the shiny stuff without telling anybody.
Well,
do it with that's fine. You do your shiny stuff off on your own. That's not a problem. But I'll reel you back in when oh no, and you reeled me in other ways. But
no, I think that's so interesting. I think hope for me is really interesting. Do you know, like it's and having hope about what you want to do and hope about what you want to achieve, I just think comes out of you. Do you know, like it's sort of the I'm going to say the emotion, but the energy that seems to come out of you without you actually even really saying it's hope. I think that's really, really, really interesting. We haven't got that much time, but I was going to ask any particular challenges you've faced as a woman in this world, or is there any sort of anything you've learned about that?
So I think challenges as a woman specifically. I think first, as I said earlier, I joined the army in 1998, and it was illegal for the LGBT community to serve, and a lot of people were still being thrown out of the military. And being treated in the most abhorrent way. And I suppose as we sort of take stock of that 25 years later, we can also have a look at how far the military has come. in those last 25 years, but also in the treatment of women. When I first joined, I couldn't join the submarine service, I couldn't join the Royal Marines, I couldn't join the Special Forces. There were so many things that I could not do. And a lot of those things were being broken down, those barriers were being lifted during my service. So I've seen a massive shift and a massive change. So I suppose that's been a really good thing. But what I have learned along the way is that there will always be some kind of barrier. I did not get a tertiary education. I had to work for that. So some people are lucky and they get that instantly. That is an advantage that an individual has. So first of all, gratitude is important. Be grateful for those sorts of things. But I do actually think that, regardless of, your circumstances, if you can find it within yourself, you can actually achieve anything. And I think, some of the challenges I've faced, I've been very fortunate. I had an education, and I can read and write. Some of the folks joining the military, don't even get some of those things, and we have to help them from scratch. So I suppose, if we think about the challenges that people face, you can achieve a lot of things. And I think there are opportunities around the corner everywhere. You just have to find it within yourself and just keep going, not give up, try and build in that resilience, but also don't be afraid to ask for help along the way. I think one of the things that you learn really early on in the military, and I certainly have learned from my family, there will always be people around you. Your tribe will change a little bit every now and again. Your circle of friends will change as you grow, but you will find the right people, and just surround yourself with that good bunch of people. And if you've got people around you who are a bad influence on you, and you will know who they are, you need to have a think about that. Is it right that I'm still being surrounded with these people? And sometimes letting go is a really difficult decision as well. So I think once you find your tribe and you find out who you are, you will know who should surround you. And hopefully you have you're lucky like me. I have a great family, and I'm very close with my siblings, and we see each other all the time. And that's pretty much all I've got time for from a family perspective. But the reality is that sometimes that might not be your particular case, but hopefully there will be other areas where you can sort of connect with your community, whether that's through sport, whether that's from a spiritual perspective, whether that's in the workplace. It doesn't really matter, but just find your tribe and find those people around you who can help sort of guide you along your journey. But also they'll be your cheerleaders. I'm full of the great ideas and all that kind of stuff, and my family, my mum is like, just try it. And she actually said to me the other day, she said, when you bury me, on my gravestone I want, she tried trying. That's what she wants, because she said it's so important. And as kids, I don't want that. No, just try it. Just try it once for me. If you don't like it, that's fair enough. But I just want to see you try it. And that's how we've been brought up. So I think being willing to make mistakes, being willing to try things that don't work for you or you don't like, that kind of thing, I think has been really important.
So you need to try eggs, Eleanor.
That I have tried them. They're horrible. I'm not eating them.
Just to bring it back down to
or
the
maybe
basics.
just the whites.
No, horrible. No? Not happening.
All right.
But no,
Sorry.
thank you. Yeah. Honestly, Sam, thank you so much for taking the time out to just come and talk to us and tell us your story. And it's been really interesting, and not a story that, well, I'm sure some people will have, but not a story that I've heard very often, if at all, really, to be honest with you. So thank you so much for
pleasure.
Opening our eyes.
Coming to join us. Oh my god, I nearly forgot. Wait, we've got one last question for you.
Ooh.
If you had to pick a song that would be the theme song for your life, what song would it be?
Can I tell you a quick story about it?
Of course you can.
So it is actually a funny story, I think. So the track was written for a movie called The Breakfast Club in 1985.
I heard lots about it, but I've still never watched it.
You've got to do this. It's got to be on your bucket list. 11 out of 10. But nobody wanted it. I think, if I remember correctly, Billy Idol, Brian Ferry, I think even Chrissie Hynde and the Pretenders said, no, we don't want to sing that song. They asked Simple Minds. Simple Minds said no. And then Simple Minds said, oh, go on, we'll do it. And they recorded it pretty reluctantly, I think, and it just went viral. And it became a massive anthem. And when you watch the movie, you'll understand why. But it's called Don't You Forget About Me by Simple Minds. And
all
I think
I
there's
know
three
is
just this.
exactly, but there's three things in that whole story that really connect with me. So the first thing is it's about nearly or missed opportunities. Simple Minds said no, all of those big bands said no, and it ended up being this massive hit. So sometimes that one thing that you almost walk past, a role, a risk, a conversation with someone, or that thing that you're avoiding is actually the very thing that could change your life. Like for Simple Minds, it got them into the market. I've had loads of those moments, joining the army under the LGBT band, transferring to the Navy, trying to be a woman in a very male dominated environment where I couldn't even do certain things just because of because I was a woman. And then also stepping into coaching now, and I guess my experiences in triathlon coaching, all of those things, I could have said no, it's all far too difficult. But they've all become defining chapters in my life. So I would say that, those near miss opportunities are things that you really need to think about. And then the second thing is, labels versus connection. I suppose the whole film, when you watch it, Eddie, you're going to enjoy it. It's about stereotypes. There's the sporty jock, the nerd, the rebel smoking, the princess, the outcast. And it's all about these young people coming of age, trapped in detention. They're all forced to see each other in a different way. And actually, the song where he says, "Don't you forget about me," it's almost like the jock and the rebel going, when we go back to class normal, don't be acting in that way. Just don't forget about me, because we've now bonded in this very special way. And I think that's how I see the coaching for Acsis Life Coaching. Strip away the labels, see the human underneath, that kind of thing is really connect with people. And I suppose the third thing for me is around being seen. And I guess that's the title, Don't You Forget About Me. It's a reminder. Everybody wants to be noticed, remembered, valued. And sadly, most of the young folk want to, I don't know, be influenced, and famous online and all this kind of stuff. But in life, and I suppose what I'm learning through my coaching, is that sometimes the smallest act of recognition can be transformative. And I suppose just saying thank you to someone or recognizing that person, you don't have to get 1,000 million views on TikTok or whatever your Insta or whatever your thing is, but by simply just stopping and saying thank you to someone. When we did our charity event a few weeks ago, one of the biggest things the team and my sister said to me afterwards was, wasn't it wonderful how people stopped on the beach to say, thanks for picking up the rubbish. Thank you for making our environment better. And it was such a wonderful feeling for all of us. And that was our biggest comment and our biggest sort of observation. So I guess, as I said to you earlier, now I've hit a milestone birthday, and I look back on life, and I think my life is a little bit like that song. Sometimes stuff you nearly ignore does actually end up defining you.
Oh, I love that.
And I suppose the Breakfast Club in your head is you've been bullied, it's awkward, there's unseen parts of yourself. You need to bring all of those parts of yourself together and realize that connecting them all, could change everything. So I think number one, you have to go watch that movie. It is absolutely iconic. But as a child of the 80s and an 80s music fan, and also I've been to see Simple Minds, and I absolutely love partying to that song. So Don't You Forget About Me would be my choice for today.
Brilliant.
That was awesome.
Well, thank you so much,
yeah,
Sam.
Really awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate it, and it's been fascinating. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you
and
so much.
And thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Cheers all. Thanks.
Cheers.